Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from the Telesur studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. We begin in Russia, where the foreign minister Sergei Lavrov said, in reference to the Monroe Doctrine by U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton, was an insult to all Latin America. Lavrov made the statement during a joint press conference with the Chancellor of Qatar, and it comes after Bolton mentioned the Monroe Doctrine while discussing plans to create a coalition to overthrow Venezuela's government. The doctrine was established in 1823 and opposed European colonization of the Americas, declaring South America part of Washington's sphere of influence.
After the UN was established in 1945, international law has been regulated by the Charter of these universal organizations. The theory and practice of backyard are offensive in general terms, and I believe that Latin American countries will react to this arrogant statement by John Bolton when he mentioned that the Monroe Doctrine can be applied to Venezuela but has offended of all Latin America. More than that, Washington officials recently threatened, saying that Venezuela is not the end. Cuba and Nicaragua will come later. The countries of this region should think of such philosophy.
Earlier, our correspondent in Moscow, Hansel Oro, sent us this report with more details of the remarks.
The Russian Chancellery has described it as arrogant, the expression used in an interview with the U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton when referring with the Monroe Doctrine. In this sense, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has expressed that this expression refers to the policy of intervention that the United States is currently practicing openly in Latin America. Russia, however, advocates transparent policies in the region. On the other hand, the Foreign Minister of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, called to reflection of all Latin American countries on the current situation. Also, the Secretary of the Security Council of Russia, Nikolai Patrushev, expressed that recently the number of North American military forces in Colombia and Puerto Rico has increased with the intention of military intervention in Venezuela or the region. He also denounced the creation of paramilitary forces in Colombia's border with Venezuela, something similar to the model created in Syria to break Venezuelan sovereignty.
Thank you, Hansel. And now to Venezuela, because despite the threats by the United States, the self-proclaimed President Juan Guaidó arrived to Venezuela without any trouble. No arrest warrants have been issued against Guaidó, and he passed unimpeded through customs at Caracas airport. Several European ambassadors went to the airport to meet him, including those from Germany, France, and the Netherlands. Opposition supporters gathered in the east of the capital to welcome Guaidó, who called for protests across the country on the day he returned to Venezuela. Both the U.S. Vice President Mike Pence and the National Security Advisor John Bolton warned of a strong and swift response if any action were taken against the opposition leader. And following the welcome given to Guaidó by European Union ambassadors, Venezuela's Foreign Minister Jorge Arriaza accused Germany and other European governments of illicit and hostile interference in Venezuelan affairs. Jorge Arriaza noted that the German parliament had already condemned its government's behavior. As you can see, this is the Twitter where the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Jorge Arriaza said, where he said that the juridical department of the Bundestag, of the German Bundestag, called these actions, the action of its government as matters of influencing in matters of internal affairs of Venezuela, like illicit interference, he called it. And as you can see, this is the Twitter that Arriaza, where he mentioned the interference of Germany. And the meeting between CARICOM and U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has been postponed until further notice. CARICOM's chairman Timothy Harris, along with the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados, were expected to hold talks on Venezuela with Pompeo on Wednesday. However, the U.S. Embassy in Trinidad has informed that the meeting will not take place as planned. CARICOM leaders say they remain open to meeting with the U.S. as they continue to pursue a peaceful and sustainable outcome for Venezuela, as they agreed on a statement that resulted after the 30th intersessional meeting last week in St. Kitts and Nevis. Time for a first break hearing from the South. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and at Laura P. Telesur. Stay with us. This weekend marked 3 years since the assassination of the environmental activist Berta Cáceres in Honduras. Our correspondent in Tegucigalpa, Hilda Silvestrucci, brings us up to date with the case.
In the past 3 years, the Honduran government and the judiciary in particular have shown their bias in the judicial process for Berta Cáceres. They haven't called the families which own the energy development company. This is something that Berta's family lawyers have been demanding since the process began. Some progress has been made as the perpetrator of a killing are in jail, despite not being condemned, but it doesn't mean the case is moving forward. Meanwhile, Berta's family are denouncing irregularities in the case file. They haven't been able to access it through this 36 months. Some of the tests put forward by Berta's lawyers have also been rejected by judge. The search for justice in the case of Berta Cáceres' murders continues.
Thank you, Hilda. And the Mexican president has called a large gold mining project in the state of Baja California to protect the environment and water resources. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador decided to cancel the $1 million investment in the Sierra de la Laguna biosphere reserve because it is one of the main sources of drinking water in the region. The decision surprised many as one of the president's closest allies, Ricardo Salinas Pliego, a high-profile businessman, had significant shares in the project. And 2 migrants have been killed and another 6 were injured after being attacked by armed assailants in the Mexican state of Chiapas. The migrants, mostly Guatemalans, were traveling in 3 vehicles with 2 groups of armed men who were most likely human traffickers when they were attacked by unknown gunmen. Authorities have launched an investigation into the case, but the identities of the 2 deceased are still unknown. Those wounded will be sent back to Guatemala. In Uruguay, President Tabaré Vázquez had outlined the achievement made by his government in the last 4 years of his presidency. Let's find out more about his office.
It was a much-anticipated speech. The election year has just kicked off in Uruguay, and it's no big surprise that thousands of citizens came to listen to President Tabaré Vázquez's speech that summarized what his government has achieved over the past 4 years. One of the things that Vázquez highlighted was the increase in the national minimum wage by 314% since the left-wing government took power.
We have been prioritizing wages and working conditions of the working and low-class citizens, and between 2004 and 2019, as you all know, their salaries have increased by 314%. All this because we want to ensure a national minimum salary that protects the weakest.
President Vázquez also listed the achievements in 10 sectors which were prioritised during his second term. These were education, healthcare, national housing, digitalisation and foreign policy, amongst others, especially regarding Uruguay's stance on the situation in Venezuela. The president said his government maintains a policy of non-interference.
We do not support any kind of foreign interference because we are faithful to the legacy of Uruguay and its government throughout history. We defend the sovereignty and self-determination of nations. Also, we believe in non-interference policies in the international affairs of nations and a peaceful resolution to controversial issues. And today we are happy to see that many countries follow this instance.
With regard to the economy, President Vázquez delivered some hard facts. Uruguay has been experiencing an uninterrupted economic growth over the last 14 years. This year, the economy is expected to grow by 2%, while projections for 2020 say that the growth will be between 2.5 and 3%. In the meanwhile, public and social security sectors are in need of improvement.
I think Tabare has done a thorough and detailed review of progress in many sectors and acknowledged that there is still a lot of room for improvement. There are things to do in order to improve the well-being of our society, bring greater equity and more equal rights.
The opposition took to social media to criticize Vázquez's speech, but experts say there is overwhelming data to back the president's claims, although the public doesn't see much of it.
The truth is that one can come with enormous enthusiasm in recognizing and appreciating what the government has done for us. In your day-to-day hustling, you might not value everything they have done for us, but hopefully more and more people will recognize it.
President Vázquez ended his speech saying he has high expectations regarding the electoral campaign. He is ineligible to run again due to constitutional term limits, so the ruling party will have to choose a new candidate.
And ahead of International Women's Day on March 8th, a forum was held at the headquarters of the Embassy of Venezuela in Chile. The forum was called Women Struggling in Latin America, and it was organized by the Center of Studies Francisco Bilbao and Venezuela's Embassy in Santiago de Chile. Dozens of women debated the struggles women face in Chile, as well as the advances and setbacks in social, cultural and reproductive rights. And this Saturday, the Samba School of Rio de Janeiro paraded along the Sambódromo as part of the most famous carnival party in the world. After the start of the carnivals of Rio de Janeiro, the Sambódromo was filled with garotas and dancers who paraded through the stadium in their typical costumes. The carnival, which began officially last Friday, will be extended until next Wednesday, and during that time, thousands of tourists from all over the world will visit Rio. Time for a second and very short break. Stay back. And life started to run to normal in the disputed region of Kashmir between Pakistan and India after cross-border shelling stopped on Monday. Shops and schools have reopened in Pakistani Kashmir as tensions with India eases. The train service between India and Pakistan has also resumed service. It was suspended on February 3rd due to escalating tensions after 40 Indian soldiers were killed in the disrupted region of Kashmir.
On the 26th of February, our institutions were shut after India's sudden firing spread fear all over. The people moved to safer places. These 5-6 days were quite scary. This worry was coupled with heavy rain and snow. The people have had a really hard time, and our government has now decided to reopen the institutions.
In Somalia, residents of Mogadishu are trying to get back to their daily lives following a suicide car bomb on the outskirts of Hotel Maka al-Mukarama. 29 civilians were killed, and according to police sources, government troops killed 3 of terrorists. Meanwhile, opposition officials are questioning the government's capacity to confront the actions of Al-Shabaab, which has proclaimed responsibility.
The government has failed to secure the city because they can't stop the insurgents' attack. They shouldn't be satisfied with their work if there are still people dying, especially after dismissing security experts and then recruiting young and inexperienced staff.
And United Nations representatives have said that Iran is complying with its obligations regarding its nuclear program. The Director General of the UN International Atomic Energy Agency said that Tehran continues to fulfill its side of the agreement signed in 2015. The Islamic Republic is doing so even after the United States abandoned the agreement and implemented additional sanctions on the country. Last May, U.S. President Donald Trump announced his country's exit from the treaty, accusing Iran of violating the terms.
Nuclear-related commitments. I informed the board that Iran is implementing its nuclear-related commitments under the JCPOA. It is essential that Iran continues to fully implement these commitments.
Also in Iran, the Red Crescent is helping citizens impacted by heavy floods in the province of Sistan and Balochistan in the country's south. Some 30 municipalities in these provinces have reportedly been affected by the floods. The Iranian Red Crescent rescue teams toured over other areas where they offered relief services to families. And in the city of Mirhabe, 3 Iranian border guards died during patrol service after they were caught by strong flood waters. In Syria, hundreds of members of the Islamic State terrorist group surrendered to Syrian Democratic Forces led by the Kurdish People Protection Units after an assault to take their last remaining territory in eastern Syria. The Islamic State still has control in a few remote areas of Syria and Iraq, but it's unclear how many fighters they have left in the region. The Kurdish-led offensive has been slow due to efforts to protect civilians in the area. And the Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Aboul Gheit has said that unrest and instability in some Arab countries have allowed to the emergence of terrorist groups in the region. During a joint meeting between Interior and Justice Ministers in Tunis, he said that terrorism remains the most serious threat of all time.
These terrorist groups are still able to change their skin and develop their work methods to hit again. And unfortunately, the turmoil and fragmentation of some Arab countries is creating a space for the existence of such bloody groups.
And as part of the carnival festivities in Italy, the traditional Battle of the Oranges has taken place in the city of Ivrea. About 500 tons of oranges were launched among the participants, led by the Aranceri that travel in carts along the route designated for this race. It is believed that the origins of this festivity dates back to the Napoleonic times, when the Ivrea people faced French troops with the only resources they had. This celebration attracts tourists from all over the world. Like this, we've come to the end of this brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net, where, of course, you can find more information, opinion articles, and our special interviews. Continue with Telesur, connecting the Global South. Until next time, thank you for watching.
sino a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur. Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on culture, innovation, conservation, human well-being. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with Atomun. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identities on By Gender. Cultural manifestations, the art in all its forms, and the stories of real lives. Every day we feature a wide variety of content. Only on Telesur, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. Telesur documentaries. Sundays. Only on Telesur.
In a world infested by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice, the American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide, deepening into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on Telesur. Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective, with a team of journalists in 25 locations around the world to convey our people's reality. From the South